You're listening to the Joyful Practice for Women Lawyers podcast, episode 270. Welcome to the Joyful Practice for Women Lawyers podcast. I'm your host, Paula Price, lawyer turned certified executive coach. This podcast was created to empower women lawyers just like you to create a life and practice you love. Join me every week for a break from the hustle so we can focus on you, what you truly want, and how you can create it. If you're over the overwhelm, done with putting out fires, and ready to redefine success on your own terms, you're in the right place. Ready for today's episode? Let's dive in. How many times has this happened to you? You have set yourself up with a really excellent time management system. You've got your plans in place. You've got a new day timer. You've got your folders all organized. You've got your team on board. You've got your assistant helping you out. You've got meetings scheduled. You really have systems that are supporting you, that are helping you stay on track and feel really good, really confident, really in control of your practice, and it feels sustainable. And next thing you know, something comes your way, right? You have a really busy period at work, or you take a vacation, or something happens at home. And next thing you know, you have completely fallen off track and you're struggling because you're trying to figure out, how do I get back on track? Is there even a point to getting back on track? And if so, how do I go about doing that? Now, if this is something that you've struggled with before, you're 100% not alone. And I'm really thrilled that you've joined me for this podcast episode because what we're doing is diving into the topic of how to get back on track when your time management systems fail you and you find yourself feeling out of sorts. How do you get back on track? So if you joined me here last week, then you'll know that this is week 2 of a 4-part series. I'm recording this series in the summer of 2026. So if you're listening to these episodes as they go live, then week to week, you'll have a nugget, if you will, a part of a framework that you can use if and when you next fall off track. And my sense is that it's more likely when versus if everybody falls off track. We talked about that last week. And this week, what we're talking about is the differentiating factor between those of you who will get back on track and those of you who will not. Now, just taking a big step back, I mentioned this is a 4-part series. And so to recap what you'll learn in this 4-part series is number 1, why your time management systems fail in the first place. So if you haven't listened to that episode, you can go back to last week's episode 269, and you will go over the reasons why time management systems fail. And you will also really learn to expect that the systems will fail. And this is a good thing because when it happens, you will not feel like something has gone wrong. You will not feel like you are a failure or that your systems are inherently bad. No, none of that. This is just par for the course. And so that's good to know because then we can plan to rebuild. This week's episode is all about the difference between success and failure, right? When it comes to getting on track, what is the difference between those who get back on track and those who do not? Next week, we're going to talk about how to recover after a setback. So what are the steps that you take, right? You're off track, right? And you've got that key ingredient that we're going to talk about this week. Well, then what steps do you take? And then finally, in week 4, we're going to talk about how to make your practice feel sustainable, right? I think when it comes to time management systems and processes, ultimately, we all want a feeling of control, a feeling of confidence, and we really want to feel like our practice is sustainable, right? You may be in a busy period, for example, but you know that you'll go back to the systems that make your practice feel good. And so that's what we're going to focus on in the 4th week. So today, I mentioned what we're really doing is differentiating between success and failure. And the reason that I wanted to pull this out as a single freestanding episode is that it is that important. Right? This to me is the difference between people who are going to get back on track and those who are not. And so those 3 points are as follows. Number 1, I think it's important to highlight that having a structured approach, a time management system that is intentional, one that you design, one that supports you, one that takes into account what you want to accomplish in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year, right? Your goals, what you want to accomplish, how you're going to do it, right? Usually it's a system of calendars, of tracking your work, of tracking incoming, existing projects, the team that you work with, who is doing what, how things get done. There is a whole system in place that supports you, right? It's learning to schedule your days efficiently so that you've got your best energy for your hardest projects, so that you are dealing with your low times in a way that is efficient, so that you have enough structure and scaffolding in your day so that you feel motivated even when you don't really feel motivated, right? You've built in enough structures that you can initiate the tasks that you need to initiate. So to me, having an intentional time management structure is an intentional choice, right? It's something that you choose to do. And it is entirely optional. And the reason that I say that is because I want to differentiate between those of you who are choosing to have a system and those of you who choose not to have a system. Now, ultimately, I think we all have systems. Whether or not we're conscious of our systems, we all have ways of getting things done. If you are a lawyer, if you've graduated from law school, if you are in practice, if you have things that are getting done, you've got systems, right? Whether or not these are systems that you give a lot of thought to. And the difference here is the person that I am speaking to is like me, right? I thrive in a structured environment. I want to have structures in place. I want to know what's coming up. I want to have my calendar look a certain way. I want to know when my appointments are. I want to know when there are deadlines. I want to know who's depending on me for what and what I am accountable for and who I am accountable to and who is accountable to me, right? These are all things that I really value. And so in my world, between my professional work and my role as a parent at home and a friend and a family member and all the different hats that I wear, to me, the way that things get done is through my calendar, is through my time management systems. And not surprisingly, I tend to attract lawyers who want the same thing. Lawyers who want that feeling of control, who want a feeling of structure, who want there to be a certain cadence to their weeks, to their months, to their practice, so that they feel like they've got systems in place. And when you have that, right, when you have an intentional choice to have systems and you feel really good in those systems, then you are the person that I'm speaking to, right? You are the person that has the system. You want the system. And so for you, there is this idea of being on track and being off track. And I say this because there are people out there who do not have formal systems. They are not bothered by systems. They don't care to have systems. And so if that is you, then you may be interested. You may be interested in listening to this episode, and you may not. And you may relate to what we're talking about here today, and you may not. And that is perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine. I'm not saying that anybody needs to or should have a system, but I know for myself and the lawyers that I work with who are interested in creating time management systems, this is what they want. This is what they're choosing. And for some people, they don't feel bothered by not having a system. But if you're like me, then chances are you really, really like having a system, right? It probably makes you feel a lot less stressed. It probably makes you feel a lot more organized. You probably like knowing what is coming your way. It reduces uncertainty and anxiety over the unknown because you know what is coming. And so for me and for you, there may be this distinct feeling of being on track versus off track. And if that is you, then this is exactly an episode for you. And I offer that this idea of being on track or being off track, it really is a frame of mind. And so this is a frame of mind I'm assuming that you relate to. And the starting point here, right, I mentioned there were 3 points, is that because it's optional, right, because this idea of having your system, having it be intentional, having it be something that you really, really value, being off track, you cannot be off track if you don't differentiate between being on track or being off track. And I say that for 2 reasons. Number one, so that those of you who are like me, who you think there is a track, you feel like there is a track, that you feel validated, right? Okay, I get it. Yes, this is exactly it. And I want to also distinguish that if you are not on track or you're not on track, that is perfectly fine, right? I'm not judging. I'm not saying one is better than the other at all. And so the idea of being able to get back on track or not is not a judgment one way or the other. It is simply, are you someone who wants to have that feeling? And does that feeling come to you from having a system? Or are you somebody who is not as interested, in which case this probably isn't an episode that would resonate with you. So if we are in that category, right, now we're moving to the second point. If you want a structured time management system, then what we need to do here is accept that the system is a lifelong practice, and there are going to be times when you fall off track. So we're going back to that point that I made at the very beginning in last week's episode, which is that, yes, when you create systems, those systems are going to fail. So yes, while you may be on track at times, you will also probably over your lifetime find that there are periods where you fall off track. We are going to expect that this is going to happen. And there are so many places in life where this is true, right? If you think about brushing your teeth, right? This, for most of us, it certainly is for me, and I'm guessing for you, you probably brush your teeth every single day. Maybe it's once, twice, 3, 4 times a day. And this is simply what happens. You don't brush your teeth once and it's one and done and you never come back to it. To the contrary, you have to keep at it, right? Because your teeth need it. The plaque builds up, the food gets caught in your teeth, whatever it happens to be. And you can change the way that you brush your teeth. You might go from a handheld sort of non-electric toothbrush to an electric toothbrush. Maybe you've got an ultrasonic one and then you use a spirally one. You might use a whitening toothpaste or a sensitive teeth toothpaste. I mean, there's all these different things that you might be doing, but the practice of brushing remains, right? It is consistent. It is something that you have chosen to do for life. Same with law, right? As long as you are practicing law, it is an ongoing practice. You don't simply get to the point one day where you have nothing left to learn. I have yet to meet a lawyer, no matter how senior, who isn't learning in their practice. And so that is another parallel example of a lifelong commitment. You are going to be practicing. There is a commitment to the ongoing, and it doesn't simply get set. You can't just set it and forget it. It needs to evolve with you. Relationships are the same way, right? Your professional relationships, your personal relationships, your colleagues, your friends, your family members. When you maintain those relationships, you have a completely different experience of when those relationships start to atrophy, when the attention starts to fall back and you find that you're not as close as you were before. Those are all examples, right? We need to be consistent. We need to have the practices that keep things moving forward, that keep things sustainable. And so when you're thinking about this, right, again, I mentioned there is a difference between those who get back on track and those who do not get back on track. And what we want to understand for this concept is that number one, whether or not you choose to have a system is optional. And I'm assuming that you have chosen that this is something that you want. Now, if you've chosen it and it's something that you want, then we have to accept that this is a lifelong commitment, or it's certainly a commitment for as long as you want this time management practice to be a part of your life. And here we're talking about it in the context of your professional work. But my guess is that you're also applying time management practices outside of work, right? Dinner plans with friends, appointments for your kids, soccer practice, ballet practice, whatever scheduled events you go to, there are likely things that you're doing to keep track, whether it's calendars or appointments in your phone or email reminders. So there's all these different things. And so we want to be aware that we are choosing this, we are accepting this as a part of our day to day. And that brings us to the third and final point, which is whether or not you fail or succeed at getting back on track depends on whether you choose to keep going or if you choose to give up. That is the central concept of today's podcast episode. Are you choosing to make this a practice? Now, there's an expression that my mom shared with me when I was younger. She used to say, persistent people begin their success where others end in failure. The exact context she used to use this in was typically during the summer when I would be out literally pounding the pavement with a stack of resumes, looking for a summer job. And if you're of my vintage, then you may have similar memories from when you were of that vintage, right? It literally meant putting on your best outfit and printing up a stack of resumes and walking up and down the streets of busy areas where there were coffee shops and stores and places where teenagers or young adults would be hired for a summer to help out. And she used to say, you only need one job. True. And persistent people begin their success where others end in failure. So the same is true here, right? The idea that your practice management systems, your time management systems are going to stop working in one shape or form, and that you get to decide whether or not you're going to try to get back on the horse. You're going to try to get back on track. Now, again, if you don't care to have these systems, then that's one thing, right? Again, we're not concerned about saying that you should do this. But if you do want systems, then the secret is choosing to keep going. It boils down to you making a commitment to you, a commitment to yourself, a commitment to the practice that you have chosen, and to keep going. As long as you are willing to try, there's no way you can fail. And the way that I like to think about failure, right? If I'm thinking about failure in the language of a coach, right? I mean, I understand that failure can be an objective measure, right? You take a test, and if you score below 50%, then you have technically failed the test. That's fine. But when it comes to a practice, you are either winning or you are learning. And so in my view, as long as you are taking one step ahead of the next and you keep pushing forward, you've made a decision, you've made a commitment that you are going to keep trying to get back on track, there is no way that you can fail. Failing is deciding not to do this anymore and wanting to do it, right? If you don't want to do it, you're in a different category. But failing would be giving up on yourself. But if you choose to keep going, you make that decision that yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, I'm going to fail. Yes, this is potentially a lifelong practice. And I'm okay with the idea that when this happens, I am going to pick myself up and get back on track. That decision is what is going to differentiate you from those who simply do not get back on track. So this is the key here. The key of this podcast episode is to decide that no matter what happens, you are making the choice. You are a person who gets up and gets back on track. Now, to do this, it could be really helpful to laser focus in on the reasons that you have for having a system, for wanting to get back on track. Now, if you were to ask me why I choose to get back on track, it's because I love the feeling of peace of mind that I have when I am back on track, when my systems are up and running, when I have my calendar in place, when I know exactly what is on my to-do list. I feel a sense of peace. I feel in control. I feel more confident. I feel more clarity. And this is exactly how clients that I work with feel when they have that sense of confidence and control over their calendar, right? It's like you design the calendar, you start to implement it, you feel that it's really working, and then things start to shift, right? You get sick, or you have a big case, or something happens and you fall off track. And there's that feeling of being unsettled. It's a feeling of a lack of ease, right? You know intuitively that you've fallen off track. And if you want to get that feeling back, right? You want to get that sense of control back. It means reestablishing. It means getting back on track. It's a decision to do the work that is required to get there. So for you, I'd encourage you to think about what is important to you about being on track. And it could be that structure. It could be predictability. It could be that you feel way less stress when you know exactly what is coming, what you're responsible for, what other people are responsible for. You know that things are going to get done. There is time allocated for things to get done. It feels orderly. It feels organized. You have that sense of confidence. You have that sense of ease. You have that sense of not feeling like you're missing something. And so when you make that choice, right? And today's episode, if we're going to recap the key points, number one, having a time management system is optional, right? The intentional one that I've described here, right? Where you're choosing to commit to having a time management system in place because you want a feeling, you want a result, you want something that is associated with it. The idea that when you choose that, if you choose that it is a lifelong commitment. It is like brushing your teeth. You are going to continue to work on it, to work at it, for it to evolve. And that is okay, right? That is part of what you're signing up for. And then finally, whether or not you fail or succeed, right? Whether or not you get back on track or choose not to get back on track boils down to a decision. And if you're making a decision that come hell or high water, you're going to do this, there's no way you can fail. So that, my dear, is the main point of today's episode, which is to find it in yourself, to make that choice, to make that decision, to commit to being a person who gets themselves back on track when things go sideways. And with that, you are going to be able to do the things that you need to do to get your calendar back under control. And so when you come back next week, what we're going to focus on is how to recover after a setback. So if you are in that situation where you've had systems, they've worked really well for you, you like having systems, right? Something happened, right? Your system failed, and then you found yourself totally off track or partially off track, and you know you want to regain control. You want to get back on track. You've made that decision. You've made that commitment. That's when we're going to follow the steps that are going to take you from feeling where you are now or feeling where you've fallen off to getting back on the horse. So, my dear listener, thank you again for joining me here this week. I hope this episode is resonating with you. I hope you're really seeing how this applies to you. I hope this decision is one that you are making and that you're sticking to, because that is going to be the key ingredient that sets you up for success no matter what. So thank you again for joining me. I'm excited for you to come back next week, where we're going to talk about how to recover after a setback. Bye for now. If you enjoyed today's show and don't want to miss an episode, subscribe and follow the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you haven't already, please leave a rating and review. Your feedback will help me create a podcast that's tailored to your needs and goes straight to the heart of what matters to you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Joyful Practice for Women Lawyers podcast. If you want more information, visit www.thejoyfulpractice.com. See you next week.